Hello and welcome to Arsenal Analysed. I'm JC. I hope you're doing well. Today I bring you tactical analysis on another huge win for Arsenal. 1-0 away at Stamford Bridge. Still sitting pretty at the top of the Premier League. If you are looking forward to breaking it all down in today's video, go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. But let's waste no more time at all and jump straight into that tactical board. So as you can see on screen, these are the lineups for both Chelsea and Arsenal. The only question mark, which is a running theme now, it seems, over the last 2 weeks at least, is left back. Now, Zinchenko had been pictured in training recently. However, I did expect Kieran Tierney to get the nod after Tomiyasu picked up a knock midweek in the Europa League, because Zinchenko hasn't played many minutes recently. And Kieran Tierney has been playing fairly regularly, at least on a Thursday evening. However, it was Zinchenko that got the nod, and it really did play into the tactical system that Arteta went with in the end, because he was looking, it felt, to exploit Chelsea's right-hand side. But let's have a little look at how things looked for both teams, both from an attacking perspective as well as a sort of defensive perspective. Now, Thiago Silva typically tends to play in a back three, but for one reason or another, Potter decided to go with a back four on this particular occasion. And it was very, very apparent early doors that they were looking to exploit Arsenal down that right-hand side, Zinchenko. Now, the main reason for that is we know that Arsenal like to line up when attacking in this type of system. I would say we have the two inverted fullbacks. Now, sometimes we would see White join the attack to make it up as a six. And when this does happen, we see a slight shift where Zinchenko comes in here. And often he even joins in a little higher or a little more advanced in that final third. Sometimes he'll swap places with Granit Xhaka. Sometimes you'll see Martinelli in here and Xhaka out there. And likewise with Jesus. There's always rotations between these four players, for example. Now, I think because of how advanced Zinchenko likes to be in the system that Arteta plays and how much he likes to get inside as an inverted fullback, sometimes even a midfielder, you can count him as one of those. What we did see quite often is Azpilicueta get forward and Sterling getting into this area quite often. Now, Havertz, although on paper, Chelsea were down as a 4-2-3-1. What we would see quite often is Havertz coming over to this side and even Mason Mount coming here as well. And we would see 4 players or 5 players all overloading on this right-hand side. Now, because of that, Arsenal also try to exploit the pace of Martinelli, the movement of Jesus, the movement of Xhaka, because he's been absolutely brilliant in recent weeks, and how well he plays that role in the half space, and at times doubling up with Zinchenko in that left half space to really take advantage of, well, the lack of pace with Azpilicueta. Now, we would also often see Jorginho and Loftus-Cheek come over here, but because of how advanced he was, what we would sometimes see as the game progressed is Azpilicueta came back and they did play as a back three, because there was so much, I suppose, overload on this right-hand side. Cucurella did often try to get forward and provide some width on this left-hand side. And there were times where he did get a little bit of joy on that left-hand side. But because we know that White likes to overlap with Saka, and a lot of people like to double up on Saka at times, we saw Mount coming over to this side to try and deal with the overlapping run of White. But because of how good these two are and how well they've played in recent months, it forced Cucurella back. What Chelsea didn't want to do is be in a position where he was caught out, and then all of a sudden there's a huge space in here for Arsenal to exploit. But predominantly, as the game went on, all of the football, it felt, was being played down Arsenal's left and Chelsea's right. Chelsea looking to expose Zinchenko, if you will, whether it be a fitness or tactical reason, and Arsenal looking to expose Azpilicueta and the fact that Chelsea like to typically play in a back three, with more of a sort of lopsided system. That's the way I see things being set up. Arsenal, from a defensive point of view, it was very much the same that we're used to seeing. It was either a 4-1-4-1 formation with Jesus leading that when it was in a counter-attack with Odegaard dropping into midfield and Partey sitting in front of that back four. But if it was more of a 4-4-2, which is what Arsenal typically tend to go with, then Odegaard would sit alongside Jesus and Arsenal would press in a 5, especially if Chelsea were looking to play around with the ball at the back. Chelsea, on the other hand, when Arsenal were playing around with the ball at the back, there would be a front 4, for example, of Mount, Aubameyang, Havertz and Sterling. Havertz would be floating between the left and the right-hand side. But it was a great tactical battle. It does very much seem as though this was Arteta's plan coming into this particular fixture, and it worked. We've got some pictures that I can show you in just a moment from the game itself of where Arsenal were really looking to exploit Chelsea down their right-hand side. But let's have a quick look at the action areas and the average passing shapes of both sides. Does what I just mentioned, is it reflected in some of this data? So we can see here from a Chelsea point of view on the left-hand side, it looks like at times they were playing with a back 5, and that's because Jorginho would drop in deep at times, especially when the fullbacks got forward, when Cucurella and Azpilicueta wanted to provide extra options in midfield and attack and provide width. Jorginho would drop in. Sometimes we would see Chalobah bomb forward. Sometimes we would see Ruben Loftus-Cheek do the same thing as well. Chalobah would sometimes sit there to allow that to happen. But we can see there that front 3 of Havertz as well as Sterling and Aubameyang. Aubameyang probably having a game to forget. And as we can see here with Chelsea's action areas, very much looking to exploit that right-hand side. A lot of what they were trying to do, you can see there highlighted in the very middle of this particular picture. A lot of that deep orange for them coming down their right-hand side. Now, compared to Arsenal's, this is something that's split between the left and the right flank. For those regular watchers, when we looked at these action areas last week, it was very much split evenly across all 3 of those action areas when sitting in the opposition's half. Now, looking at Arsenal's average passing shape, we can immediately see number 35 Zinchenko and 34 Granit Xhaka. I said that they were doubling up in that left half space, constantly rotating between Martinelli. Sometimes he would come inside and swap with Jesus and he would go wide. Just constantly pulling players out of position, constantly using those wide rotations to really kind of exploit a system that Chelsea aren't necessarily used to playing in. Saliba playing very, very deep, somewhat of a sweeper, something you don't often see now in the modern game. And Thomas Partey playing a slightly deeper role. I thought he was absolutely fantastic today, really shielding that back 4, dictating the pace of the game, an anchor, if you will, starting many of the attacks and plays that Arsenal had. A lot of what went well today did go through him. So very, very good indeed. And going back to what I just mentioned a moment ago, here are those pictures to really show you how Arsenal try to exploit that right-hand side of Chelsea. Now, in picture number 1, we can see the flight of the ball from Gabriel with that red arrow. And in the blue circle is Azpilicueta. He's looking to provide pressure, and he's also looking to provide options for Chelsea should they win the ball in their high press. Now, we can see the 2 blue lines there. The one in the middle of the park is Chelsea's midfield. There's too much space between the 2 central midfield players and also between the lines, allowing Arsenal all that time and space between the lines. Arsenal finding it very easy to break them down. But Arsenal have managed to stretch Chelsea in this particular picture because one of the centre-backs have had to come across. And on this occasion, it's Chalobah. And Arsenal have got Xhaka and Martinelli in that red oval shape there, looking to pounce and take advantage of the space left by Azpilicueta. Now, in picture number 2 and 3, this is the same move in the first half. This was, in my opinion, the opportunity that Gabriel Jesus should have scored. I'm absolutely gutted for him because I do think it's going to just take 1 goal for him now to just really get going. And it might come at the worst time for him because the World Cup is just around the corner. and that confidence might get stumped. However, it might do him the world of good if he gets called up to the Brazil squad. Anyway, picture number 2, Arsenal were playing very nice football around at the back, one-touch stuff, managed to get out, and we can see here immediately that there are hardly any numbers in terms of Chelsea players in that midfield area. A common theme throughout this particular game, when Chelsea did get hold of the ball at the back, there were no options in midfield, which is highlighted in picture number 4. There was what seems like a gaping hole because of how deep Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Jorginho were playing when offering support because of Arsenal's high press. When they did get the ball at the back, they were having to ping the ball, in some cases, 40, 50, 60 yards. And in the last 10 minutes, it was coming all the way through to Sterling quite often, finding himself centrally, not playing to his strengths. But going back to picture number 2, the path of the ball being followed here in the red arrow, it's Granit Xhaka that has the ball, and we can see there in that yellow arrow, that's Martinelli busting a gut to get down that left-hand side yet again. The player marking him or following his run is Azpilicueta, but what you'll find here in this picture is all of these Chelsea players are busting a gut to get back, and Arsenal managed to catch Chelsea out in transition, which is highlighted in picture number 3. That red circle, in that one circle, you have Martinelli, who's whipping the ball in to where Gabriel Jesus is in that 18-yard box. But alongside Martinelli, you've got Zinchenko, and beyond him, which is the player that had the ball initially, is Granit Xhaka. And that's what I meant earlier on about those wide rotations. Sometimes it'll be Gabriel Martinelli coming inside. Sometimes he'll be going out wide. Sometimes it'll be Granit Xhaka, the furthest player forward. Sometimes it'll be Zinchenko on the edge of the box, constantly pulling players out of position, making it very, very difficult for Chelsea to really read the game. And in my opinion, Arsenal were very unlucky today not to get 2 or 3 goals. And then in picture number 4, just highlighting Arsenal's high press and how successful they were in this game. We can see 5 red shirts there. That is the typical 5 in Martinelli, Granit Xhaka, Odegaard, Jesus, and Saka. They're providing that high press really, really, really early, and there is absolutely no one in midfield. You can see there in that transparent oval blue shape, the only player is Kai Havertz offering that support. It's forcing Chelsea to either go long or play risky passes round at the back. And eventually, Jesus wins the ball. They go on to have an opportunity. We didn't score from it, but they were really in a position where they were creating a lot of their own problems, and it was very much avoidable. And then finally, to finish up, we've got all of the top statistics for Arsenal players on the left-hand side. Quite a few there for the likes of Saka, Jesus, and Thomas Partey, all of which I thought were absolutely phenomenal. As mentioned already, Thomas Partey, just an absolute monster in that midfield. He was my Arsenal man of the match. Officially, it was given to Saliba, who, again, I thought was absolutely fantastic. He really managed the game very, very well today. Didn't look out of position, didn't really look like he was under too much pressure. And he did have, most importantly, Aubameyang in his back pocket all the way up until the point of being brought off, which speaks volumes. Jesus just didn't stop running. His passing and his dribbling was absolutely fantastic. He may not score goals, does a lot of work off the ball and for his colleagues. And, well, Thomas Partey, where do we start? My man of the match, 90 minutes completed, 93% passing completion. Not as many touches as the previous game. I think he had over 100 completed passes, but there were 6 long balls completed as well, a couple of shots, 2 completed dribbles, 7 duels won, 3 clearances, 2 interceptions, and 2 tackles. So an absolutely phenomenal game from Thomas Partey for the second week in a row, but it could have quite easily have gone to Saliba or maybe Jesus. Martinelli had a good game. White, for me, was absolutely phenomenal. He was my number 2, but you'll have to let me know down in the comments below, who was your Arsenal man of the match? Arsenal are back at the top of the league. Not many games now left before the World Cup, but we'll be bringing you all the coverage, all the tactical analysis that you need. And if you have enjoyed today's video, go ahead and smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. But for now, I'm JC, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe and take care.